Hello and welcome back to another Tech Bites. My name is Amber Richmond, and today we are going to be doing advanced Nearpod. So to begin, first I would like to talk about the different Nearpod packages, because depending on which one you have determines what you're able to do in Nearpod. So if you have the free account, you will have 100 megabytes of storage. You will be able to have 40 students join per lesson. And you'll have standard Nearpod functionality, which means you'll be able to do most things on Nearpod. The only ones that you really can't do are like the vocabulary videos. Now, with just 40 students being able to join in per lesson, that is completely doable. Even if you're at middle school or high school, you'll just have to duplicate your lesson for each class instead of having one for everybody. As you upgrade, you get more storage, and you also get more advanced features such as the drag and drop subplans and the Google Slide add-on. And you're allowed to have 75 students in each lesson. And those things, the storage and the amount of students goes up as we go on. And then we have our district packages, which allow a co-teacher. It allows you to have the advanced collaboration board, live annotation, be able to switch from live to student paced, be able to have student accounts, also have that LMS integration and personalized training and things like that. You can also have a lot more students joining on your lesson, and you have unlimited storage, lesson library, and activity bank usage. So those are somewhat limited if you are on the free version. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to go over today for the advanced version does require more access to Nearpod. I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. That way, if you're unable to find it, that might be the reason why. Okay, so let's get on into Nearpod. This is the advanced version of the Nearpod training. So if you do not know the basics, how to create a basic lesson, how to access the library, things like that, please go back and watch our previous Tech Bites, which is all about the basics of Nearpod before coming back and watching this one. Okay, so first I would like to start off with your settings. There's a lot of settings that you can manipulate in Nearpod that will make your life as a teacher a lot easier. So to get to your settings, you come up here, click on your little person icon in the top right corner, and you come down here to lesson settings. Now there's some basic student account settings. This one, think about before you turn it on. This is very useful, especially if you have students that are making up names, putting fake names, or forgetting to put their names. You can turn that on. It's going to have them log in one time with their Google or Office 365 email. So if your students do not have an email, do not turn this on, because otherwise they won't be able to get in. But if your students do have an email, you can turn that on. It will automatically fill in their names as long as they're logged into their account. Enable student notes is very useful because it allows students to take their own personalized notes while they're doing their assignments. Just make sure you let students know if you have this turned on that you cannot see their notes on your side, but it will send them a copy of their notes and they'll be able to access them later. Immersive Reader is a really cool feature. So Immersive Reader allows Nearpod to read to your students. So if you have struggling readers, you can put your articles in Nearpod and it'll actually read it to them. It also does language translation. So if you have those bilingual students, it'll actually translate and stuff for them. So I want to take a second and look at what this looks like in Nearpod. So I'm just going to open up another tab here and go into one of my lessons so I can show you the Immersive Reader. Oh, that one was made using Google. Let me go to a different one. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have that toggled on, which is on. And then I'm going to preview this And I'm going to actually turn it to student paced. Or live pace, sorry. That way I can see it right here. So this is my slide. I have some vocabulary, their design requirements for a game that I was having them create. So right here is the immersive reader. It looks like this. When students click on it, it pops it up. If I was to hit play, it'll start reading. Actually, let me share my sound so you can hear that.
Design requirements. White blood cell.
Now, students can change the speed of the voice and they can make it male or female.
Cell.
And if there's a word that they don't understand, they can actually click on it.
Design.
And it'll show them a picture if it has
Requirements.
one that it can use.
Hero.
So that's really cool for your struggling readers. They can come up here, change their text preferences. They can, if they don't like the white background, they can darken their screen. There are grammar options if you want them to see the parts of speech. So you can use that for a lesson as well. You can break it down into syllables if you want them to be able to sound out the words. And then you can come down here and you can choose, is it going to show one line of text at a time? Or is it going to show multiple lines? You can turn on and off that picture dictionary. So if you don't want it to show those pictures, so you have a lot of cool features when it comes to the immersive reader. So you can choose whether to turn that on or off right here. If you don't want it to read to your students, you can make sure that it's off. Then we have some settings for our live participation. So we can default to student view. So that means when you are live and you go into a lesson, what you see is the student view. So right here, go back. This is the student view. If I wanted to switch it to teacher view, I could do that. So I'm seeing the student view right now. So let me go to one where students have to answer. So here's one where students have to answer and I can see what they see, the box to type in. So if I come up here, I can switch it to teacher view and then I can see all of my students who have answered and I can even share their answers with the class if I wanted to. So this is the teacher view. So you can decide if you want it to show up in student view when you first go into it or teacher view. I do recommend turning that on just because you don't want it to pop up the other students' answers when you're in class, especially if you're sharing your screen. So I like to have it on student view so I can maybe model sentence starters in that box and things like that. And then you can choose whether you want to allow your students to edit and resubmit their answers or if you want the first submission to be it. When we're talking about student pace, this means students are going at their own pace. This one's super important. You can turn this on and it's going to tell students that they cannot go on if they have skipped a question. So no more having them submit blank Nearpods. It won't let them go to the end if they haven't answered the questions. It'll say, hey, you haven't answered this, please answer it before hitting next. And so that's very useful. I would highly recommend turning that on. You can have it share their quiz and multiple choice question results if you want them to see their answers. You can choose whether or not that's turned on or off, and you can also choose whether to now enable the collaboration board. So this one can be a little dangerous because if you turn it on and you have a collaboration board, and let me just show you what a collaboration board is again, just in case you don't remember. So a collaboration board Looks like this. It looks like a board. You tell the students the topic. What did you think about the video? So you can just put any topic. You can design it. Lots of cool designs in here. Um, and then you can hit save. And what's going to happen, I'm going to preview this so you can see what it looks like. Students will see your prompt at the top. They'll have this board right here. They can write what they thought. They can add pictures, videos, they can record things. They can even add GIFs and so when they post, it might look something like this. Then from there, they can heart each other's comments. They can comment back. So on a live lesson, this is great to do. They can all see each other's responses, but do think about it carefully when you're doing a student paced because you are not there to monitor. They're doing it on their own time. So I worry about students putting something inappropriate and all their students seeing it before you have a chance to check. So that's up to you if you want to have it on or off during student pace. I do recommend that you have it off. If it's off, they can only see their own answer, but they can't see other student answers until you go in and approve them. So those are some important settings for Nearpod. So now we're going to go into a couple cool settings if you have one of the different editions. So let's say I decided to assign this assignment and I wanted to do it live in class and I'm going through it with them. I'm just gonna go into it. So I'm going through it with them. We get to a point where I say, you know what, for the next 3 to 5 questions, I want you to go at your own pace. I'm going to give you 15 minutes, get through the next 3 to 5 questions. And so you can actually come down here to the bottom where it says turn on student paced, and you can choose, okay, I want slide 9 through slide 12 to be student paced. And you can turn on student pace mode. That means it's turned on. Students, you can move to different slides and it will not move their slides until they get to the designated slide that you said, I want to be back with them. So once they get back here, then it will go back into the teacher paced. Okay, but they can take their time. They can go through slides 9 through 12. When you're ready for everyone to come back and be on the same slide as you, you can turn off student pace mode, and then that will take them back to the slide where you're at. So I thought that was pretty cool that you could toggle it on and off for parts of your lesson if you have a certain part that you want them to do independently and it's multiple slides. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show you is if you did save a lesson from the library, so this is one that I got from the library. If you want to edit that lesson and delete things, it's a quick fix. You can click edit right here. And it's going to bring you into this editor. Let's say I don't want this teacher guide part. I can go just click right here and delete that slide and it's going to remove it. So I can go into any slide I don't want and I can delete it. And then I can save that and exit and the slides will no longer be in there. Okay, so next for our advanced lesson, I want to really go into some of the features and talk about how to build a really good lesson using Nearpod. So we are going to start a lesson, creating it from just creating a new lesson right here. And let's say I'm going to make it about the respiratory system. So the slides I'm not going to talk about are the ones you've probably already played with. So I'm sure you've already done open-ended questions. I'm sure you've already figured out polls. Um, I want to go into some of the more advanced things. So I'm going to start with a draw it because most people think that the draw it is simply to draw pictures, but there's a lot more to draw it than meets the eye. So going into draw it, most of you already know you can put your instructions here. So if I was to just tell them draw what, okay, so a little pre-assessment for my lesson, hit save. That's how most people use draw it. When the students get in, sorry, computer's being slow. Students get in, they can see your little prompt. They have their little pins and they'll draw a picture of what they think that might look like. But I'm going to show you a different way to use it. So I'm going to exit out of here and I'm going to show you other ways to use draw it. So one thing you can notice here is that there's a library up here. You can also upload your own pictures and it tells you what file types you can upload here. So you can upload PNGs, JPEGs, even PDFs. So first of all, it has this cool library. So you can bring in those graphic organizers for your students to use. So let's say I wanted to use a Venn diagram. I can search for Venn diagram. It's going to give me all kinds of different ones. I can pick one. And here's a Venn diagram that my students can draw on. Let's say I wanted a KWL chart. I could search KWL. Bam, it's going to bring one in. And if I don't like that one, I can always go to a different one. And there's all different, here's a pros and cons. There's all different things that you can look in here. And you can also choose how you want to filter them. So if you want to make sure it's your grade level or specific to your subject, you can do that as well. You can even look, there's a template so they can learn how to do cursive, that kind of stuff. There's some really cool stuff in here, so I highly recommend you exploring it. The other way you can use draw it is to upload your own PDFs. So if you're with more advanced students and you want them to annotate, highlight, pick out things from passages, you can actually upload a passage in here. So I'm going to upload, and I'm just going to upload one from my computer. And I'm going to go in here and just get an article. So let's say that this is an article that we are working with and I want them to do this article. Actually, let me find an actual, I mean, they could totally answer that one, but I want to find something with more text. And I want to say, so here's an article. And so I can zoom in and out right here. And I can decide how much of that they'll see. And I can save it. And then I'm going to hit preview just to kind of show you how this would work with students. So here's an article, they see it, they can make that go away, and you can have them highlight, pull things out, circle, annotate. So a couple of things I want to go over. There is a pin. You can change the size of the cursor by going up and down, so you can make it as thick or as thin as you want. You can choose color. So you could have them like circle metaphors, similes, draw a line, and then have them pull out this text box and label what it is. And they can use that same tool for their text. They just click on the text. They can make their text smaller or larger, change the color. They can adjust the size of the box, move it around. Just make sure, and then if they're on text, they can always go back and get it and edit it again later. If they want to use a highlighter, there's a highlighter. So they can choose the color, make it as big or as small as they want. You can have them go through and highlight words that they don't know. Then if you wanted to take that further, they can make a list of those words that they don't know on the side over here. And then compare those with the partner. Sometimes when drawing, my students don't like to draw in the drawing. They'd like to use an external tool like Paint. So they can upload a picture. So if they save it as a picture to their computer, they can upload that picture browser file and bring it into Nearpod. And then of course you have your eraser. If you mess up and they want to fix something, it won't erase text, but it will erase highlights, drawings, things like that. And then when they're ready, they just hit submit and it turns in their drawing. So that's another way to use the drawing feature, being able to really annotate and draw on documents. So I always thought that was a really cool feature. One other thing you can add as you're editing your draw is you can add, especially like for my students who like to take their time when drawing, you can add an actual timer up here. So I can say, I'm only going to give you 5 minutes to do this activity. It'll only allow them to be on that side for 5 minutes, and then it's going to cut them off and submit their work. So that's a really cool feature too, especially if you have students who tend to take too long, especially if you're saying draw what you think a respiratory system looks like and you don't want them to take all day. So you can add timers to those as well. So the next thing I want to show you is the video library. I'm sure many of you already know how to add a video, and I showed you how to add a video from YouTube last time. So again, go to YouTube and you can actually search YouTube right here. And then once you add that video in, you can add questions to it. But what I wanted to show you is there is a video library in Nearpod full of already checked videos. So like they're already grade level appropriate. So like this is for grades K through 5, this is for grades K through or 6 through 12, this is for grades 9 through 12. So you can go through some of these and find one that's connected to the grade level that you're teaching. Always monitor it, make sure it is the content that you're teaching. But the cool thing about using the ones from the Nearpod library is they already have questions built in. You do not have to recreate the wheel. And so I can take this and if I want to edit the question, I just click edit on it and I can change it however I want. So if there is a question I don't like, I can go in and I can change that. If I do want to add more questions, I can simply click in the video where I want to add a question and I can click add an activity. And it's going to give me the option between open-ended and multiple choice. I can also trim the video. So if I don't want to show the whole video, but just simply a part of it, it's easy. I just click trim and I can say I want it to end here and I want it to start here so that my students are only getting the little piece that they need. And then you hit trim and it will cut that video. If you do decide to use the YouTube video, you will have to go and add your own questions. Okay, next, I want to talk to you about also the Nearpod library. When you do matching pairs, there are some already created activities in the library. So if I wanted to look up human body systems, it's going to search its library and give me some good examples that I might want to use for my project here. Now, if I'm not seeing one, I can create my own. So it's as easy as adding a pair, um, typing in the word that I'm teaching them, and then adding an image, and it actually can let me search my image here, or I can add my own one. Um, so sometimes when you search, it's going to show you like labeled stuff, but if you keep looking, you can probably find one. But you can always, and you can always zoom in. So like if I wanted to cut out this word, I can zoom in and say only show this part. But you can always upload your own pictures as well. And so if I decide I don't want this and I do want to use the Nearpod library, I can click on one and I can bring those in as well. And if I want to edit them, I can always click on them and edit the pair. So I can say, no, I don't like that picture, and I want to add my own picture to have a starting point. But again, you can always add your own. When students do this one, they'll have the words and they just simply have to match the word to the picture. And then when they finally get it correct, um, it will give them a green check. And again, you can add a timer to this one as well. Okay, and next thing I want to show you is how to add web content into your activity. So I'm going to click Add Activity. And again, if you're not seeing the things that I'm showing you, you can use the search bar or click All. And if you scroll through them, you'll be able to see all of them. Web content is interactive, though it's green. So this is web content. So we use web content when there's something that we want from a different website and we want to bring it into our Nearpod. So rather than sending students out of Nearpod to a different website, we can simply enter the URL here. So let's say I had a really cool respiratory game that I wanted my students to play, but it's on this website over here. So I want them to play this game. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to simply paste the URL into this web content block. Hit save, and it's going to bring it in. So when I hit preview, this is what it will look for like for students. It's going to say click here to open the web page. I'm going to click on it. It's going to bring up a little tiny pop-up and allow them to play the game right here. When they're finished, they just click the X and then they're back to their Nearpod. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is the Nearpod 3D. We had talked a little bit last time about the Nearpod virtual field trips, but I really want to talk to you about Nearpod 3D because Nearpod 3D is a really cool way to let students explore things, not just places. So let's say we're doing the respiratory system. So I'm going to go human body. Here's the respiratory system done. It's that easy to create it. Sometimes it does get stuck loading when we're using Nearpod 3D, and all you need to do is simply hit the refresh button and it's still there. So I want to preview this to show you what this looks like for students. So this is a really cool way to make things engaging, exciting. They can just simply left click to look around. They can scroll or pinch out on the touchpad with their fingers. They can actually go inside of things, really look at it up close in detail, explore. And so it really gives them a good idea of what things looks like and lets them explore. And so following an activity like this, I definitely want them to do some reflecting after they've really looked at it. Maybe ask questions. So from here would be a great time to add a collaboration board. So I showed that to you really quick before. I'm going to show it to you in more detail now. So here's my collaboration board. I'm going to add that in. And real quick, remember when you do a collaboration board, it does not reset from one class to another if you assign the same Nearpod to multiple classes. So if you are going to do a collaboration board and you don't want the next class to see the answers that the previous class put, then you want to do this. So let me go back to my Nearpod. So let's say that this is the assignment that has the collaboration board. I'm going to want to go here and I'm going to want to make a duplicate of that assignment for each class. So I'm going to have, and whenever you make a duplicate, you can rename. So I'm just going to, what I usually do is I'll be like, name of the assignment, and then I'll put first hour, and then I'll hit save. And I'll do that for every single class. So now I have my original, and then I'll have first hour, second hour, third hour, fourth hour, and I'll assign them separately to each class. That way they have their own fresh collaboration board for each class. Because otherwise, when they come in, they'll see what the class before them did if you just have one assignment with like 170 kids. So again, over on the collaboration board, you have lots of different themes. It can be festive, can match your topic, however you want to do it. Then up here, you can add an image. So let's say if we wanted to remind them of the respiratory system, we could just quickly search for respiratory system. And we can bring that in just to remind them about all the parts so they can use the correct terminology. And then so a prompt with an image that they can look at, and then they can answer. Okay. Other things that I kind of want to go over, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but let's just look through some of these. So we have slides classic, slideshow, all of those are just for information. We do have sway. I kind of briefly showed you sway last time, but we do have a whole tutorial that we did over how to create sways with your content. And sways are a really great way to be visually stunning and let students explore and learn a lot of information. But please make sure that you follow this up with some kind of interactive activity where they were expected to learn something from that sway. So maybe like a time to climb game or something like that following this way. Again, you can upload a PDF, but it's better if you do it as a draw it, because a draw it's going to allow you to highlight, annotate right on the text, that kind of thing. You can turn a PowerPoint document into an Nearpod. By clicking this one, you can bring in your whole PowerPoint so you're not having to recreate the wheel. So that one's very handy because you'll have all your information slides done already, and then you'll just have to go through and add interactive slides between them. And you can even upload audio files if you want to hear have your kids hear you. We went over video. FlowCab has, again, FlowCab is only if you have the district edition, but FlowCab is really cool way to, it has hip hop videos about almost every single topic that you would teach. So definitely check that out, worth checking out. They're really engaging to students. I can just show you a quick example of a FlowCab video. So let's, again, sticking with our theme. Say I wanted a FlowCab video about the respiratory system. I can preview it before I add it. I can play it.
Okay, so you just sitting there breathing, right?
Right.
Real easy, not even thinking about it?
I'm not thinking about breathing at all.
That's all thanks to the respiratory system.
Oh, word.
Listen, breathe in, breathe out. That's the respiratory system putting work in, no doubt. Breathe out, Breathe in. That's the respiratory system handling your oxygen. The human body, it works like a storage device, holding nutrients like carbs that you got from.
So you can see vocabulary does a really great job of making engaging, showing kids things that interest them and putting it in a way that they'll understand and be able to connect with. So that's a really cool Nearpod feature if you have the paid version. Okay, back to this. BBC video is kind of the same thing, but those are the more historical videos with science and social studies only. And of course, Nearpod 3D, we went over that. PhET Simulator is science and math, and it's very hands-on. I showed you one example last time. I want to go through some more of these examples. So they do have math, elementary, middle, and high. So let's just kind of quickly go through these. So math and elementary, a lot on area. There's basic fractions, expressions, pendulums, projectiles. And then if we get into middle school, again, it's area, but it's a little bit more complex. Arithmetic, factors, dividing. And then we start going into mixed numbers, shapes, geometry, equality, expressions, fractions. And again, there's a lot more to it. We go into graphing, springs, still has the projection, and then we go into unit rates, proportions, that kind of stuff. So you can see that it really aligns well with the standards. And there's no instructions on any of these games. They're kind of designed for kids to just go in and play and figure it out. But I would highly recommend that you kind of go in and figure it out first. So that way, if your kids are stuck, you'll at least be able to be like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, and so science, same thing. We talk about static electricity. We have the elementary, middle school, and high school. Goes into balancing light, building atoms, capacitors, color vision, talking about energy skate parks. So talking about that kinetic energy, friction, forces and motion, a lot of basic machine concepts, masses and springs. So there's a lot of cool things in here that you can play with that students will enjoy. And as we get into high school, it really goes into like different laws and bending light and balancing atoms, isotopes, and really more high school level concepts, and lets them play with it and understand how it works in a simulation environment. So that one's pretty cool. Okay, and then the VR field trips lets you take them anywhere in the world and has them explore a little bit, but it is just like a screenshot. They can't like walk through a place. They can only see it from one perspective and spin around. Quiz, draw it, fill in the blank. We kind of went over all of those last time. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on those. Those are pretty self-explanatory. I do want to talk a little bit about Flip. So if you're not familiar with Flip, Flip allows you to give your students video prompts and forces them to talk. So I know a lot of the speaking and listening standards are really hard to hit because it's easy to make students type their answers, but it's really hard to get them to speak. And so Flip is really cool way to get your students to have to speak. And so here's kind of what it looks like. The students respond. It makes a little video of them talking. So you can go in and you can assign them a little speaking prompt. You have to actually go to flip.com to assign. Once you've assigned it, you simply share it out, copy the link, and then in your Nearpod, you can click add, paste your link in there, and add the assignment. And so once they've added it, then the students can then the students can come in and try to answer that. Oh, this is the topic URL. Check that. Okay, so once you've added it, it'll go in there and then the students can simply, oops, give it a second. I don't know if I was on the right one. Not sure if I have that flip activated. We'll see if it, yeah, so it takes them in and then they can simply add their response. It's going to access their camera. My camera is being used by Zoom right now, so you can't see it, but I could then quickly make a video of me talking, submit it, and it would be turned into my teacher to grade. So that's really cool when it comes to making students talk. All right. The last thing, well, there's a couple more things I want to show you. So with the time to climb, that is a really fun game that students really love. Sometimes it can be hard to come up with questions, but again, they're multiple choice questions. You can base it on what you expected your students to learn. And I would actually recommend when making an assignment in Nearpod that you start with the end in mind. So you want to have your questions, think of your standards that you're really wanting to make sure they get, and come up with questions that really measure if they got what they were supposed to, and make that your time to climb questions. And so everything leading up to this should be teaching them about those questions. And so when they get here, it's easy. Now there is a library with pre-built questions. So if I wanted to look up respiratory system, here's one. And my questions are already done for me. There's 7 questions already in here. I can go in, I can modify them. I can add my own. I can add images to them if I wanted to. But again, there is a library to help you along your way. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you is how Nearpod aligns with Google Slides. So a lot of you will have either Google Slides that you've already made, or you might have PowerPoints that you've already made, and you don't want to start from scratch. So we already talked a little bit about how to bring a PowerPoint in. You can just simply hit create lesson and bring your PowerPoint in, but you can also create from a Google slide. And so if I click this, it's going to take me out of Nearpod and take me into Google Slides. There is a little setup that needs to be done, and this instruction sheet, when you first go into it, it's going to kind of go teach you how to do it. But of course, I'm going to teach you how to do it. So even if you just go to Google Slides by going to your Google Slides, first thing I want to say is make sure you are logged in with the same account that your Nearpod is on, because it will have some connectivity issues if you're not on the same Google account as you, or on the same account that your Nearpod's logged into. But you will have the option to log in later. So first thing I want to show you is you can create a blank presentation in Google Slide. So if you have a PowerPoint you want to create, you can click open, and you can actually find that PowerPoint. So you can upload it from the computer. I'm just going to go get a PowerPoint. I'm just going to pick this one. Okay, so you can bring that PowerPoint in. It's going to load it to your Google Drive, and then you can tell it to open it with Google Slides, and it will convert that Google slide into, that was a PowerPoint, and now it's a Google slide. So they're very easy to work with. So this one's not having any compatibility issues. You're good. Okay. You can also take a Google slideshow that you have already made. So I'm just going to go into, say, this one. And you can take this assignment and we can add Nearpod slides to it from Google. You don't even have to go into Nearpod. So what we want to do is come up here to extensions, and we want to get an add-on. So I'm going to go to add-ons and then get add-ons. And I can see Nearpod for Google Slides is right here. If you do not see it, you can search it. So I can just search Nearpod and it's going to show up right here. So you can click on that and you can go ahead and install it. I already have it installed, but you can click install. It'll take a minute to install, and then it will ask you to log into your Nearpod account. So even if you're not in the same account, you can connect it that way. Now, sometimes after you install it, you will have to close out of Google Slides and refresh, close the browser, and then reopen it in order to actually see Nearpod appear right here. So once you see Nearpod is right here, then you can just simply go over and click Open Nearpod. And that's going to bring up your Nearpod interactive activities. So you're not making these slides interactive, but you are adding interactive slides between them. So I can add in a draw it, ask them a question. Here's our daily objective. And so I might ask my students from here, okay, what do you already know about computer science? And I might want to add a KWL chart. So I can click draw it. It's going to bring up that same screen that you saw in Nearpod, and I can search KWL, bring in my KWL chart, and then I can ask them, what do you know about computer science? And then my students will be able to write on that slide. And so if I did have a slide that I wanted them to like annotate on or highlight vocabulary that they didn't know, for example, this one, there's a lot of reading on this one. I might want to come over here and click convert to draw it. That's going to convert this slide to a draw it, and then they'll be able to highlight on it or underline words they don't know. So I can click edit this slide. And you'll be able to see kind of what that looks like. So it already has my text here. I can put the instructions. And I can save it. So that I just turn this into a draw that they can highlight on. So again, if you have a big old paragraph on your slide, you know, make it interactive for them. So that way they're doing one read through looking for vocabulary, and then you can have another read through where they're reading it, and then you could even make the next slide paraphrase what you just read and put it in your own words. Or you could say read paragraph 1, paraphrase it, and then go on to paragraph 2, that kind of thing. And so to tell them to paraphrase this, if I wanted to add a slide after it, find it, here it is. I can just come up here, add an open-ended question. And tell them what to do. Now, anytime you have an open-ended question, a little warning, you do have this on-off switch here where you can allow students to record their answers. So this is great if you're going to grade in Nearpod. If you're going to grade off the reports in Nearpod, absolutely you can do this. Students can record instead of write. But again, if you really want to see those student writing samples, because your struggling students are going to prefer to record their voice and write, I would keep it off so you can see the writing samples. Also, if you're grading it through like a speed grader through Canvas or through Google Classroom or in a separate app, and they had done an audio recording, it just looks like they did not answer the question. So be careful turning this on unless you're going to be grading in Nearpod reports themselves. If you're going to be grading in an external LMS, I would say leave it off. It's not worth it having to go back and forth because students say, oh, I recorded my answer, and then you have to go hunt it down later. So again, only if you're going to be grading in Nearpod itself, and I'll be showing you that next. Okay, so we added our question right here. It adds that in, and you can see I did convert this to a draw. It didn't take out my original slide, so if I want that to be gone, I'd have to delete that slide, and then my draw slide is still there, and then I have my open-ended question following it. I can move my KWL chart up there. So you can go through. When you are done making your Google Slides interactive, then you can save them and go to Nearpod, and that's going to transfer that slideshow with all the interactive lessons into your Nearpod library. From there, then you can choose to do live participation or student paced and assign that assignment. If you have questions about assigning an assignment in an LMS like Canvas or Google Classroom, I will be doing that training coming up here next month. That one will be in let me look at our schedule here. So that one is actually on January 31st. So if you're interested in integrating Nearpod with Canvas or with Google Classroom, definitely check out that one. I'm going to be showing you all the do's and don'ts when it comes to using it within an LMS system, because there's a lot of things that are finicky that can make your life difficult if you don't do them a certain way. Okay, so now we can see our assignment we just created. So where are we? There we go. Is now in our library. Which one was it though? That is a good question. Oh, it was this one. So it is now here, ready to go. I can preview it, I can edit it, and I can assign it. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you all is on reports. So I'm going to show you some student reports and kind of show you what the grading side looks like. So you can see overall, these are overall participation grades. I wouldn't say this is their grade because you will have to go through and check their answers and make sure they did actually do them correctly. From here, if I wanted to, I can sort them by who did it, who didn't. I can come here to activity reports and I can look at specific questions. So if I just want to see their drawings, I can go here and I can see all of their drawings. I can see who just scribbled, who submitted it blank, who actually answered it. I can check their answers. If I need to zoom in, I can click on it and I can go through them here and actually grade them. Same thing for the open-ended questions. I can see them all right here and I can easily grade them and see their thinking, see who didn't answer that question, that kind of stuff. If I want to just look at one student at a time and see their whole work, I can do that as well. So when I click on the student's name, I can see she submitted the assignment 3 times. So I will have to go to each one because she probably started it. So you could see on her first submission, she had not done the draw activity, but by the 3rd submission, again, it's not there, but if I go to the middle one, let me find it. I think they kind of got rearranged here. So I just saw, oh, there it is. You can see that she did go back and answer that later. So sometimes students, especially if they're doing student paced, will go back in and continue where they left off and it will look like a separate submission. So do keep that in mind when grading them. And what I usually do is I kind of click through them and you can see her overall participation on this one was 0. So I know that one's blank. and I'll kind of look, okay, this one was 100% done, so this is the one I should be grading. Sometimes they'll have like 25% on one, 75% on the other. So you can see that they got partially done and then they went back in and continued it later, which is perfectly fine. And again, when we do the LMS training, I will show you how to see multiple submissions within an LMS as well. A lot of times students will want to go back into it to see if they submitted, and it does start a new submission. And so that's why it sometimes, okay, it's blank. See, she finished it on this one, but then she went back into it and it was blank. And so she had that a 0. So it looks like her final submission was not done, but I can easily go back and see, okay, she did do it, and I can go through and grade it. And again, on this report is where it will show the audio recordings as well. From here, you can download the entire lesson and your story or your student reports if you just want to look at certain ones. I like to just download the entire lesson. It's going to turn everyone's assignments into a giant PDF, and then I can just go through them, grade them, take screenshots, send them feedback, that kind of thing. So that's for the reports. And the final thing I want to show you, if you have the upgraded version, is there is a sub-plan section in Nearpod that they have recently added, and you can actually create a sub-plan for a sick day, for a sub. You can add lessons from your library, so you do have to add them to your library first. But let's say I want my students to do that when I'm done. I can choose to do all my classes, just one class, however many classes you're going to assign, hit finish. And you can put it on the sub-plan dashboard. So if you have the email of the plan or the email of the sub, you can go in here, you can put all your information in and you can send it to them. You can also add your admin in here as well. And you can send them your sub plan. And then I would just leave it on the sub dashboard. So when the sub comes in, they click, everything is right here. Students can get in and it's pretty easy to use. So that's a really cool feature. And I know our hour is almost up, but I did want to show you that so that you're aware of it, because it's pretty cool. You can put in your date of absences, put in all your people's info, add all your cell phone number if you want to get notified of things, emergency procedures, upload all this stuff, and it's going to send them the lesson with the join code and everything, and they don't have to be in here messing with your actual library and stuff. So love that as well. So we do have several Tech Bites coming up. So today is the 29th. We just finished our advanced Nearpod. On December 13th, we're going to be going over Microsoft Word fonts and format painter. And then on the 13th as well, we're going to talk about cyber hygiene and keeping your cyber secure. And then in January, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Word and Smart Art, doing those KWLs and things in Microsoft Word. And then PowerPoint presentations. And then again, end of January, integrating the Nearpod with Canvas and using text boxes in Microsoft Word and learning how to hyperlink in February. So we have a lot of cool stuff coming up. You can even click here to see future topics. We hope you will join us, and we're excited to seeing you in the future. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us for Advanced Nearpod, and we will see you next Tech Bites.